Another day, another hot piece of Jim Harbaugh gossip hits the news cycle, and the latest buzz has one NFL analyst saying that Harbaugh to the Chargers is a done deal.
You are Locked On Chargers, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Chargers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, and welcome into the Locked On Jim Harbaugh podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Wade, joined as always by my co-host, David Drogemeyer, and we've been covering the Chargers now for 8 seasons together, but this is our 6th year as the host of the Locked On Chargers podcast, bringing you your team every day, and at least covering Jim Harbaugh for the last several weeks. But thank you to the everydayers for making us your first listen today, and to make sure you never miss the show, especially with potential giant breaking news on the horizon, go subscribe or follow for free on the Locked On Chargers YouTube channel and listen wherever you get your podcast from. David, what do we got today?
Well, Daniel, we know that second interview with Jim Harbaugh and the Chargers is upcoming, could be coming very soon, and hopefully he does not leave without a contract to be the next head coach of the Chargers. And if he is, what are the expectations we should have for Justin Herbert? And does Kellen Moore have any chance to be the Chargers offensive coordinator next season?
Yeah, I think those are all good questions. We're getting into our Chargers buy or sell, getting into the biggest storylines and overreactions, and they're flying like crazy these days. But today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. Every single day, it feels like some sort of news trickles out about Jim Harbaugh, and we know you guys like the Jim Harbaugh talk, which is why it's like, hey, we want to be here every day to talk about the latest news. And the latest news coming out, at least on Monday to me, was Colin Cowherd having John Middlecoff on his show, and this is how it went down. Colin Cowherd said something along the lines of, hey, someone I trust as the Chargers are willing to pay Jim Harbaugh. And this was John Middlecoff's response to that, who is a very reputable, NFL analyst, who says, I fully expect him to leave Michigan. Everyone thought that I've been talking to that thinks that Harbaugh to the Chargers deal, as long as he's cool with it, has been a done deal for a while. And he also said, how long can you be called cheap and irrelevant before you eventually kind of draw a line in the sand? And David, there's definitely a caveat there, where it's like, if he's good with it. But at this point, it feels like, hey, if Jim Harbaugh wasn't good with it, then what is all this dog and pony show about, right?
Yeah.
We haven't really heard anyone kind of definitively say like, hey, this is a done deal, which I think is definitely a great step in the right direction. And like with all the things that are coming out on Monday, I think this is just another good sign that things are going to happen the way Chargers fans want them to.
Absolutely. I mean, this is extremely exciting to have somebody out there that's reputable that says that, hey, that like this thing like that we've all been talking about, that we've all been dreaming about is real. Like it is, there's a very like sincere possibility of this actually getting to the finish line when we all get what we want, which is Jim Harbaugh as the next head coach of the Chargers. Obviously that hasn't happened yet. And of course the caveat of if he wants it is there, but I don't think that he would be taking a second interview with the Chargers if we weren't already at the point to where they were aligned on a lot of different aspects of how he wants to run the organization, the type of power he wants, the input he wants in the general manager. I think they've already had all these conversations. They've already had all these talks. I think this second interview is more so, just to get things completely finished and finalized and done.
I mean, I think that's the hope, right? But we also heard he wasn't going to make potentially an announcement until the end of this week or next week, depending on how you're looking at how that was phrased. But it's never a done deal until it's a done deal, right? To me. So, like, I hear that. It's definitely good news. I believe that people think it could be a done deal. I believe around league circles, this is what everyone expects to happen at this point.
It's what everyone's saying.
If he doesn't go back to Michigan. But that's the thing there is, like, even though he says, if Jim Harbaugh wants the deal, he also says, I fully expect him to leave Michigan, right? And if he leaves Michigan, I fully expect him to go to the Chargers, right? Yeah. So you're kind of piecing these things together. Yeah. And I think that if he leaves Michigan, he will be with the Chargers. And I think another piece of news that came out on Monday really kind of spices things up as far as when this could happen, right? There was a lot of kind of unsubstantiated reports floating around there, but I got this from a pretty reputable source. Chris Ballas, the senior editor of thewolverine.com, said this in basically a special kind of intel part of his page, saying, as reported earlier today, the Chargers have called Harbaugh back for a second interview. Sources with LA ties tell us the coach had a flight scheduled as soon as tonight, which was posted on Monday, so Monday night, and that they're expecting Jim Harbaugh's wife, Sarah, to accompany him. That's interesting, right? That seems like it can't be nothing, right? Like if you're getting the family involved, it feels more serious. And then if it is going to be like that, like with the family coming, that makes me think, David, like, hey, even though we've been told the end of the week, it could happen sooner. Like we could be here tomorrow with an emergency episode. I'm not going to say that's when it is going to happen, right? Because I still think everything's up in the air. But like, look what happened with the Titans, right?
Yeah.
They had several second interview candidates that they had lined up, and the Chargers haven't released any of them besides Jim Harbaugh at this point. That's the only second interview that we know of this point. Yeah. They had several other guys lined up for second interviews. Brian Callahan went in there, and it was a done deal. So, like, this thing could heat up quick. And I haven't really had that feeling so far. Obviously, once they fulfilled the Rooney Rule requirements, like, okay, it can happen at any time. All of those things are out of the way. There is a chance, David, they get him in the building, and they don't let him go without signing that deal.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie to you. When I saw the reports that his wife would be, or, reportedly, potentially accompanying him, to Los Angeles for this interview, the hairs on my arm started to stand up. The excitement really started to permeate through my body, because you're not going to include the family into these type of situations unless you're like deathly serious. Like, you're talking about making this move. You're talking about moving your family across the country over to Los Angeles. I'm not involving my significant other, my wife, into this situation if I'm not 100% serious that this is something that could happen. So I really do kind of get that adrenaline flowing, get that excitement going, because it's starting to become real. Obviously, I'm like all of you. I want to see the Adam Schefters of the world and the Chargers official accounts and, the Tom Pelissero. I want to see all of those reports saying the Chargers are closing in on a deal with Jim Harbaugh, like you all do. But if you want to connect the dots, I think the dots are starting to come together, and that picture is starting to come into focus.
I mean, I had to pay it for a premium membership to the Wolverine.com. So if that's not, the best reporting. No, I mean, this is a reputable source, someone who has been in the past very linked in on what's going on at Michigan, right? Because these are college sources, right? Not necessarily NFL ones. So I do think, would I feel better if Adam Schefter tweeted that his wife Sarah was coming along for the second interview? Sure. Would Adam Schefter tweet that? I don't know, right? Like, I don't know how in-depth he would get on that, especially with everything going on in the coaching cycle. So, you have to take it with a grain of salt. But if that's the truth, and it's happening potentially as soon as Monday, them starting that second interview, like, we're on full alert. We're on full-blown emergency podcast. Be ready to go the next couple of days. And please let it happen in the next couple of days, because I'll be off my day job the next couple of days. But that leads us to our first buy or sell here from Kyle Travis, David, who says, buy or sell. The Chargers will have announced their head coach by this time next week.
Yeah, I'm buying it because it's going to happen this week. I really, truly believe that we're at the end of this crazy search. I mean, that the Chargers have been on. And hey, maybe this whole coaching search was more of a show. Was just more of a hey, we did this. We said we were going to go out there and interview a bunch of guys, when they already had their number one candidate in mind the entire time, and they were just wanting to get through it so they can get it done. I think it's going to happen this week, so I'm absolutely buying it. I think we're at the end, and I am pretty confident that it's going to be the result that we all want.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is if it's Jim Harbaugh, I think it happens this week, right? And I know you've talked about, hey, like if he leaves that second meeting without a deal, then some alarm bells will start to go off for you, right? Like,
absolutely.
So it feels like if it is going to happen with Jim Harbaugh, it would be this week. If it doesn't, it means the Chargers want to have, those second round of interviews for guys that are still in the playoffs, right? The Todd Munkins, the Mike McDonalds, the Ben Johnson. It could also mean that Jim Harbaugh still is undecided at this point and still has Michigan up in there. Like you said, like, hey, it's nice to think the Chargers had him in mind all along, which I believe that they did. But I think you have to go into it knowing that Jim Harbaugh is the ultimate wild card, and everything's on the table for him at all times. And that being said, that's why, as Chargers fans, you're not used to this, because the Chargers don't make moves like this. They don't make the splashy moves, right? That's just not what they've done in their history. But if they get it done, it's going to be groundbreaking. It is going to be franchise shattering as far as what this culture is and what we think of the Chargers potentially, right? And it's also going to mean big things for Justin Herbert, because wherever Jim Harbaugh's been, That quarterback has had a ton of success, whether it's J.J. McCarthy or Andrew Luck or Colin Kaepernick. What will Justin Herbert be able to do with Jim Harbaugh in year one? We're going to talk about that coming up right after this. First, I need to tell you guys about FanDuel because the NFL regular season is over, but there's still time to get in on the action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, they have a great promotion going on because new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $150 in bonus bets, whether you win or lose or not. You find a bet, you place $5 on it, you're getting $150 in bonus bucks. It's as easy as that. You lose, you win. That simple. The app is always super easy to use, though, and there's so many different ways to bet, like live same-game parlays. You can find bets in the new Explore tab, and you can also make a parlay in the Parlay Hub, the best way to find popular parlays. But the best promotion they have right now is the Kick of Destiny 2 with Rob Gronkowski looking for redemption after missing a 25-yard field goal during the Super Bowl last year. New and returning customers can make a guess whether he makes it or not this year, and if you win, you get your share of $10 million. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon. Make your first bet a layup. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. David, let's get into our Chargers buy or sell, the biggest storylines and overreactions. And shout out to you guys because some of you guys sent in some of your buy or sells, and we had some really good ones. We might be doing a Chargers mailbag tomorrow, too. So if you guys want to hit us up on Locked On LAC and get any questions that don't necessarily fit into buy or sell, make sure you guys hit us up there or call into the voicemail line at 323-524-7924. And Chargers mailbag works just in case there's some crazy emergency podcast that has to come out tomorrow. So this one we have from Colby Talbot, who says, buy or sell Justin Herbert with Jim Harbaugh, one young receiver of your choice in the draft, and Powers Johnson, the center from Oregon, will put Justin Herbert in the top 2 candidates for MVP in the 2024 season. David, are you buying or selling that?
Yeah, I mean, as much as I would love to see that happen, I just think there's more involved in that is going to be required to get him in that conversation, so I am going to sell it. And the reason why is the defense needs to be overhauled. And you're saying, oh, why are you bringing up defense when it comes to Justin Herbert? It's because Justin Herbert has had to play hero ball and had to be Superman and come back from behind so many times that it's really hard to think about this defense as it's currently constructed being able to do that for Justin Herbert. So the defense needs to be overhauled. That's a big thing. The running game needs to be established, and then it needs to be productive. We all have seen that time and time again, how important it is. We have not seen it at all this past season, and we know that the best teams in the NFL are able to run the ball, and they're able to close out games. And then, of course, you can get the receiver and the center that you want, but that still doesn't mean that they're going to be productive at the NFL level. They have great skills, obviously, but they still have to be able to perform as well as they did in college as they will in the NFL, and that is definitely no guarantee.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, saying that the Chargers get that explosive receiver, you're saying my choice. I'm guessing, Marvin Harrison Jr. doesn't count there, right? And we're talking about realistic choices. So let's say Malik Neighbors. You get Malik Neighbors and Jackson Powers Johnson, and you fill 2 big holes, that explosive receiver and center with Corey Linsley likely retiring. That's good. And I won't lie, I go into every season thinking that Justin Herbert could put up an MVP season, right?
Yeah.
So I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility at all. But to build off your point about the defense, the reason I would sell it is with the Chargers salary cap situation going into next year, I just don't know if they're going to have the record for it, because that's one of the biggest things with MVP that doesn't get talked about enough. You have to be on one of the probably top 3 teams in the NFL record-wise. Yeah. Like, you have to be, it's usually the best player, right, on the best or close to the best team in the NFL. That's just how the NFL MVP
it's not necessarily the most valuable player.
No, I mean, there's more to it than that. I mean, he's already put up a borderline MVP season. Go back to 2021. Over 5,000 passing yards, 38 passing touchdowns. Both of those would have led the NFL this year, right?
Yeah.
Like, if he did that, and they also finished 13-4, he would have won it this year, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like, that's just how it is. I also think you don't know who the offensive coordinator is at this point. If you're going to a much more run-heavy attack potentially, right, that could affect the numbers. Even if you just have a more well-balanced offense, that could affect the numbers, because the other thing is Justin Herbert has in part put up a lot of big numbers, especially in those seasons, because he's always chasing, right?
Yeah.
Like, and he always has to kind of throw the ball a ton to keep them in games. So I think all of those things are part of it. Justin Herbert absolutely has the talent to be in the MVP consideration every single year in a retooling year in 2024? Will they have a good enough record to get him there? That's the part I'd be less sure about. But let's get to this, David, because we all know how big the buzz is around Jim Harbaugh, and we have been the leading proponents of, hey, this is something you have to get done. This is such a huge move and a perfect fit for where your franchise is at right now. So the buy or sell is this. If the Chargers don't hire Jim Harbaugh, or him Harbaugh, I'm good with that too, every other hire will feel like a failure.
It's a buy. I mean, I'm buying it unequivocally. There's no other candidate out there that has the track record of success, that has, the track record of turning around, bad teams, bad organizations, and turning them into winners like Jim Harbaugh has done. And Mike Vrabel was a hell of a football player. He's a great football coach, but he doesn't have the same resume that Jim Harbaugh has. I don't think anybody out there but Bill Belichick has that resume, to be quite honest with you. And that's why I feel like if anybody not named Jim Harbaugh as the next head coach of the Chargers, it would be an unmitigated failure.
Yeah, I'm buying it. I mean, at least it's going to feel like a failure. Like, I feel like for fans, like, there are certain subsect of fans who would be very happy with someone like Mike Vrabel being that second option if it's not Jim Harbaugh. There's another subsect that even wanted Ben Johnson potentially more than Jim Harbaugh. Very, very few, I would say. But a lot of people would have been happy with that as the backup plan potentially, right?
Right.
No other hire would feel like a splashy hire. There's no other hire that would help you get rid of the cheap narrative unless it was like Bill Belichick, but they've already shown they're not interested in Bill Belichick, and that's good with me, right? But what you're saying, like, you're not getting a head coach. You're not getting an offensive coordinator. You're not getting an offensive genius even, right? What you're getting is a franchise builder. What you're getting is someone who has turned around terrible franchises and terrible college football programs already and has had success every place that he's ever gone, right? Yeah. Which makes you feel like, as a Charger fan, this is the guy that can break the curse. This is the guy that can actually change things, actually get rid of charging. Every coach wants to come in and do it. This is the actual guy that can do it, because every single place he's been, he's had success. Every single quarterback he's worked with has turned into a good quarterback, right? Basically. So, like, it will feel like a failure if they don't get him. It'll feel like, it's their fault if they don't get him one way or another, right?
Oh, Lord God, let there not be a world in which the Chargers do not hire Jim Harbaugh, because that world, especially on social media, on X, will be an absolute cesspool of negativity that the world may have never seen before.
I mean, the thing is like, protect the news facility in El Segundo, because they will be out with pitchforks and torches ready to burn that place down, right? Like that is... That's
what it feels like.
Invested. The Chargers fans have never been so unified on one thing. Ever. I'm not even just talking about coaching hires. Like, the Chargers have never been on the same page this much as they are with this hire. And that's why it's going to feel like a failure, basically, no matter what. But let's get into this quick buy or sell here, David. What's something that you brought up, which is just this. Buy or sell, the Chargers will announce their head coach hire and their general manager hire at the same time.
Yeah, I did bring this one up. I thought this one would be pretty interesting, just because we know that the Chargers said that they would conduct head coach and GM interviews kind of simultaneously. I am going to sell it. I do not believe that they are going to have both hires done the same day. I think it's going to be head coach first, and after they know they have that in concrete, they have that in black and white, they have it in DocuSign, they have it everywhere. Then after that, then they're going to go get the general manager that is going to work best in concert with the head coach.
Well, because the thing is I feel like we always kind of knew that Jim Harbaugh was going to have some say in who the general manager hire was going to be anyways, right? Like, that's been out there. I don't think it's going to happen like that. Like, it doesn't usually happen like that. That'd be pretty, rare. Like, I think maybe Josh McDaniels and Ziegler might have had that with the Raiders when they were hired, as far as like a combination hiring.
I think so.
Even if it's like kind of set in stone when they hire Jim Harbaugh, who it's going to be, it's just not going to happen at the same time. But I do think that it is so important that the Chargers get the general manager hire right with Jim Harbaugh, because if you look at what the downfall was for him, obviously being a quirky personality that can grind people and can get on people's nerves, is him and Trent Baalke had a really, really bad relationship in the 49ers that ended up with him getting let go after one 8-8 season. Not even a losing season. He got let go.
And 3 NFC championship appearances and a Super Bowl appearance.
in a row.
In a
And
row.
he still 1-8-8 season was enough to doom him. So
Insane.
making sure you have that part right, making sure you get a general manager that's compatible with Jim Harbaugh is going to be such a crucial part of
critical.
it. So I don't think it happens at the same time, but I 100% think that Jim Harbaugh is going to have a say and will basically help them decide who that general manager is going to be. So I think all of those things are in play. I think that is how it's going to go down. But we did talk yesterday about Kellen Moore and the Chargers blocking him from potentially going to be the Bears offensive coordinator. But with all this Jim Harbaugh stuff we're talking about today, like, is there a chance he stays offensive coordinator in 2024? If we had to put our money where our mouths were, will he be the offensive coordinator in 2024? We're going to get into that coming up after this. First, though, I need to tell you guys that Game Time is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you. And right now, this is a big one. All users get $100 off when they buy a big game ticket with code Vegas100. We all know that the big game is coming up. If you want to save $100 off that ticket, you can use the code Vegas100 on Game Time. And Game Time always has killer last minute deals, all in prices, views from your seat, and their best price guarantee. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets, and the Game Time guarantee also means that you'll always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. So especially if you're going to the big game, you want to make sure you're getting the best price on that. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Right now, all Game Time users get $100 off the big game ticket with code Vegas100. Terms apply. Just download the Game Time app and use the code VEGAS100 for $100 off a big game ticket. Or if you're not going to that game, use the code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase for whatever event you're going to. So download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. All right, David, well, we have a few things I want to get into, not just the Kellen Moore part of it, but also what the Chargers are going to do with that 5th overall pick, and if taking an offensive tackle is a mistake, even with how bad the Chargers offensive line was in the 2023 season, because I think there's an argument both ways, but I do want to tell you guys to make sure you're checking out the first ever 24/7 sports streaming channel, Locked On Sports Today. You can find at all hours of the day, getting coverage from every sports league the way that only the Locked On local experts can. So make sure you guys go subscribe to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube to check out that first ever 24/7 live streaming channel. Dave, let's continue our buy or sell here with another buy or sell that I think is a good one that you brought up. And that is just, we talked about, hey, could it happen? Could it not happen? Not will it happen with Kellen Moore. And that's where the difference is today. And that's why the buy or sell is this. Kellen Moore will be the Chargers offensive coordinator in 2024.
Yeah, despite the fact that we know that the Chargers blocked Kellen Moore from interviewing for another offensive coordinator position, I am going to sell it. He is not going to be the offensive coordinator for the Chargers next year. I feel like they were just trying to keep all of their pieces, available to them, have all of their options open, just in case they don't get Jim Harbaugh as their head coach, just in case, they need to pair him, with a more defensive minded head coach to bring some continuity or keep some continuity for Justin Herbert. But no, I do not think he'll be back. I just think the Chargers were trying to keep their options open before things were 100% concrete and set in stone.
Another interesting part of that, right, is we don't necessarily know when the Chargers blocked that move. Like, were the Bears just now trying to see if they could get Kellen Moore in for an interview? Like, all we know is that they did block it at some point, right? We know that report just came out over the weekend, but it does feel weird to have that in concert with all the Jim Harbaugh news we're talking about today. But I think that could have happened, a week ago or so. We don't know. So I would sell it. I mean, I just don't think that many of the guys they've targeted would want to keep him. I think most guys want to hire their own guy. And I also think that his struggles in 2023 make it a much harder sell. Like, the pitch is obviously continuity, but I think the most likely scenario that this would happen would be with a defensive-minded head coach, a la Dan Quinn, maybe even a Mike Vrabel, right? But I don't think those are the coaches, so I don't think he's the offensive coordinator. So let's get into the next buy or sell here, David, which is tough, especially because I know both of us really, really value offensive line, and we've all seen how much that can be the detriment of your offense and how devastating it can be for your season if the offensive line isn't playing up to par. So the buy or sell is this. It would be a mistake for the Chargers to take an offensive tackle with the 5th overall pick.
Yeah, I'm buying that. That definitely, I feel like that would be a mistake because I don't think there's any tackles in this class that warrant a top 5 overall pick. And yeah, we haven't gotten into the game tape and the film reviewing these draft prospects.
So
Yet,
I think the thing is, I think to rephrase that though, because like obviously you haven't watched them, right? Like we haven't gotten way into that yet.
Right.
Is you just think taking that position with the 5th overall pick this year would be a mistake.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm not in favor of taking that position with the 5th overall pick. I feel like there's a player that you can get at that position that's more dynamic. You know, that's going to help you a little bit more right away, and it's a little bit less volatile with, you know, what they're going to bring to the table. I think, you know, you need to get a generational talent with the top, with the top 5 pick. And yes, I do feel like obviously tackle is a very, very important position. And yeah, you had a right tackle that gave up 9 sacks and 49 pressures last season in Trey Pipkins. But with a top 5 overall pick, I think that's got to be, you know, a lockdown corner. That's got to be a superstar wide receiver. That's got to be a surefire pass rusher. That's got to be one of those premium, you know, positions that come in and make an impact right away.
Yeah, and I mean, let's be honest. Like, tackle is a more premium position than tight end is, right? But, like, you could be talking about a generational tight end.
Right.
Left tackle is another one where it's like, hey, if it's your left tackle, that's up there with a wide receiver, right? The whole, hey, should the Bengals take Jamar Chase or Penei Sewell debate that happened and raged for so long, right? Like, I'm going to sell it, but it's not what I would do either, right? Like, a lot of Chargers fans want Joe Alt with that pick. He would still have to switch sides, which I think we've seen isn't always a given. That doesn't always mean it's the best thing. I don't think Rashawn Slater's switching to right tackle anytime soon.
Absolutely not.
I would rather have it as a trade back option. The problem is like you're not able to get out of the Trey Pipkins contract, so you're going to be paying him either way, right? So he's going to get that contract from the Chargers almost no matter what this season. It's like a negative money situation even if they were to cut him, right?
Right.
I still think offensive weapon is the best option. If you can pair Justin Herbert with that elite option, you can have the next 3 drafts to continue to build that offensive line. You can still get tackles to come in and compete with Trey Pipkins this year. You can still draft an offensive tackle in this draft, which is loaded with offensive tackles. Like, this is supposed to be a very deep tackle draft. Do I want to use a top 5 pick on a super deep draft class in a position if I don't know that's a generational type of prospect? No, I don't. So, like, I don't necessarily think it's a mistake, at least from a roster building standpoint, but, like, it just would not be where I would go with that pick. So, we have one more Chargers buy or sell here. This one's from 619 Shaggy, who I'm guessing we might see in the questions tomorrow, too, because I'm guessing he's going to put a question in. Thank you, Shaggy. The Chargers will have 2 new starters on the offensive line the first week of the 2024 season. Buy or sell?
Yeah, I'm going to buy it. I think the reason why is because I feel like, you know, obviously there's going to be a new center. We know that. I think that's a given. But
yeah, I think that's why he's saying 2, right? Because one would be too easy. We're all buying one.
Right. But I also think there's going to be some competition with the guards. I think that the guard play this past season was suspect. I feel like there's a definite room for improvement there. But I would also honestly like to see Jamari Sawyer get some play over at right tackle. I want to see him get some opportunities at right tackle, see what he can do, see if he's any better there. He played very, very well filling in at left tackle when Rashawn Slater went down. So I would like to see that. But I do feel like, I think there's going to be 2 new starters on the offensive line next season.
Yeah, it's tough for me because, like, the thing is they have so much invested in it. So, like,
right, and they're all under contract for multiple years.
Yeah, I'd probably sell it. I think I would sell it for right now.
It's tough,
I mean, center is almost guaranteed, right? Or it is basically guaranteed.
Yeah.
Both guards struggled.
Mm-hmm.
You need to find competition not only for the guards, but also for Trey Pipkins. Mm-hmm. This is the other thing I think lends itself more to your point, even though I don't necessarily know if it's going to happen. A new coaching staff and a new general manager means they're not the guys who drafted these guys.
There you go.
They don't have the same ties to these guys. They're not the same favorites. There's no Brandon Staley's boys club anymore.
Right.
Jim Harbaugh's not forgetting any birthdays, right? Like, that's what this comes down to. So I think without those ties, I think it lends itself more. But I just think there's so many different holes, and I think that group can get so much better just with a better coaching, a better, more revamped offensive line coaching staff, and a run game coordinator. All those things can get so much more out of the guys they have. That one, I think for sure, I'll sell 2 for now, even though I think all of those guys need some sort of competition to go in there and compete for those spots. And I think with a new coaching staff, a front office that doesn't have Tom Telesco, that we know kind of played favorites to a certain extent, and we know Brandon Staley played favorites, the other guys are going to have chances to win those jobs. It's just whether they're able to do it or not. But that is going to wrap things up for today's show. Make sure you guys are back here with us tomorrow. Make sure you are subscribed and follow on the Locked On Chargers YouTube channel for when the next news drop, whether it happens with Jim Harbaugh or it doesn't. We'll be going live for either one of those situations, right? So make sure you guys are subscribed there and also following us wherever you get your social media from too, because we will be posting the show there every day as we always do. And the other thing is we're doing a Chargers mailbag today. We'll keep that up in there just in case there does need to be some crazy stuff happening tomorrow. So hit us up at LockedOnLAC on Twitter to get in on the mailbag show. We'll put a post out there. Or call into 323-524-7924 to get in on the Chargers voicemail line, where if you leave a 30-second question, if you can keep it around 30 seconds and you ask a good question, you're almost guaranteed to get on the show. Ask a tier, all right? He knows. But you can also find us every day at Locked On Chargers on Instagram and our Locked On Chargers Facebook page. You can hit up my Twitter at Dan Talk Sports and David Drogemeyer at DroTalkSD. But stick with us, guys. We're the Locked On Jim Harbaugh podcast. I'm sure we'll probably have more news and gossip to talk about tomorrow. But hey, if the Jim Harbaugh news keeps coming out, we're going to be here with you, your team, every day to break it down. So make sure you guys are with us tomorrow for whatever may come, but probably Chargers mailbag. But until then, guys, take it easy and go Bolts.